Hey, Sean, it's really great to finally talk in person, so to speak.
Yes, yeah, it's been a lot of online conversations.
Yeah, for many years. We go way back when we talked Supersonics, right?
Yeah. Now I hear some potential rumblings that the Sonics may come back. I mean, I know there's been lots of talk, but I hear that they're saying if they add one more expansion team, Seattle will absolutely be the next one. I don't know.
I really hope so because the guy who bought the Sonics, he really robbed the city.
Oh
They
yeah.
didn't deserve it, right? Did I hear right that you grew up in Alaska?
I was born in Alaska, in Anchorage. Moved to California when I was 6.
When you were a really smaller kid than that, did you see any horror films in Alaska?
I remember seeing Jaws in Alaska, and I remember seeing The Exorcist. I was very young, 4 or 5 years old. My parents couldn't really afford babysitters and stuff, so they took me. It never bothered me. I didn't really think it was out of the ordinary. I mean, I don't think I didn't really even understand what was going on in The Exorcist, so I just think I was probably laughing at it. I don't know. Jaws terrified me, though. Jaws terrified me.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I saw Jaws at a drive-in with my grandma and grandpa. They laughed. They actually laughed at the shark, but I was scared out of my mind. And in all truth, I've never technically swam in the ocean since I saw Jaws.
Oh, wow.
That's it. Because, you know, the difference between Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and a great white shark, the great white shark is real. And I know the chances are very remote getting bit by one, but I always felt like I'm that one statistic that is going to get.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, so when we go back in time, I grew up in Seattle, actually. I was born in Utah. My mom and dad moved to Seattle when I was 2. My grandma and grandpa were up there, my mom's mom and dad.
Mhm.
So we went to Seattle. When I think back to the 70s, I think it was so much more difficult to see a horror film, not just based on my age, but you know, we didn't have Netflix, Prime, Laserdisc, DVD, VHS didn't even exist. And most families probably didn't have cable. When you think back to that time, I personally think that some of us folks like me and you, we have a different appreciation for films, horror films, because we had to like figure out a way of actually trying to see them, whether it was on TV or we went to the theater or maybe went to drive-in. I think because of that, because people are so used to be able to see things like this, they could turn it on, shut it off, go on their phone. I think that people don't really have the same appreciation that we did back then because we had to really make an effort and we couldn't just shut it off. Because if you didn't watch it, you weren't going to see that movie. How do you feel about that? Like, I'm not trying to knock the people of today, but I just see there's a different attention span, even to just watching a film. Like if I'm watching a scary movie, I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to take calls. I see that so much today. What do you think?
I agree with that. However, I didn't really have a problem when I was a kid finding them because I had parents that liked horror movies and I had somebody who was always willing to take me. Either my Aunt Robin or one of my neighbor's mothers used to take us a lot and his uncle used to take us a lot. And then we got lucky, and before there was cable, I don't know if you remember the pay channels. There was like On TV and Select TV and the Z channel. Yeah. We had Select TV. I used to go through the Select TV guide and mark all the, you know, whenever horror movies would come on. And I used to always want to come home early from trick-or-treating on Halloween because they have the big marathon where they would play like a full day of horror films. So I remember watching those. So I never really had a real problem seeing them. Yeah, obviously today it's at your fingertips, you know, anything you want, anytime you want. Also, I got lucky that my family, when cable happened, we got cable pretty quick. When VCRs happened, we got VCRs pretty quick. So I was always kind of right there in tune with the latest thing that was going to help me get it.
So you're lucky because I come from a really big family and you know, I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters, 9 kids. So
wow.
we didn't always have the money for those things. It was a real effort. I remember the first time I saw VHS, I had to actually go rent the machine.
Yeah.
Rent it for a weekend, and I'd get a huge bunch of tapes and watch them.
Well, I was an only child, so I think they provided those things to keep me entertained because I had no, you know what I mean? Like, you know, because both my parents worked. And I was home alone a lot. So being able to just sit there and watch TV was important.
Without saying the obvious answers that everybody always chooses with scary movies from a period of time, I think it'd be interesting to find out, were there any movies that were like a TV movie, a TV show like The Night Stalker? Was there anything like that back then that really scared you? And I don't mean the obvious answers. For me, there was a Dan Curtis TV show, movie with Angie Dickinson and Claude Akins called The Norliss Tapes. And I caught it really late. It was probably the mid-70s. It was with my father. I actually had the flu that night, so I was throwing up anyway. And we watched this movie, which is about a vampire. He didn't talk. He wasn't romantic. He was like a ruthless beast. He ripped car doors off, never said a word. It was really about like a guy researching Satan, and he started learning about this vampire, and he sacrificed flesh to this person. So, and then there was these tapes that this person listened to, which was the Norliss tapes. You can look it up if you haven't seen it, but that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it. For me, definitely one of the ones I remember earliest watching by myself late at night when my parents were asleep and it was on TV was that movie Gargoyles with Bernie Casey. That movie freaked the shit out of me. And the one that terrified me the most, hands down to this day, nothing scared me as much as Trilogy of Terror, the little doll. I mean, I was literally crying and screaming for my mom and my uncle to turn the TV off because it was freaking me out.
You obviously, that's also Dan Curtis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dan Curtis was a really good filmmaker back then. Yeah, talk about the Gargoyles. I thought you'd find this funny because I did hear you mention that in another interview. I remember when I saw it, my friends saw it too around that same time. And this is probably kind of not unusual. I remember we wanted to, when we got older, buy an RV. I think it was a combination of Gargoyles and Race with the Devil. We wanted to buy an RV and go around the country looking for monsters.
That's fun.
And some kind of similar after Jaws, we wanted to get a boat and go chase great white sharks. So I guess that's just boys, right?
Yeah.
Talking about the drive-in, were there any other titles that you remember going up, even when you went to California? Because I thought the drive-in, especially catching double features, maybe on a date, any other ones you can like remember you seen in a drive-in environment?
Oh God, I saw tons in the drive-in. I mean, that was part of my youth for sure. There was a drive-in theater in Garden Grove called Highway 39 Drive-In, which was on Beach Boulevard. There's a Walmart there now. But it had 4 screens, and I saw so many movies there. I mean, I remember seeing the original Halloween there, the original Friday the 13th there, The Shining, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 there. I think the last movie I saw there before it closed down was the Schwarzenegger movie Eraser. That was the last movie I saw in that drive-in, and then it was torn down soon after. But no, I remember I saw a really great double feature there of Halloween 4 and Hellraiser 2.
I saw The Hills Have Eyes the first time at cable at my friend's house. My friend Andrew Capella, who had Showtime, HBO, or both. But they re-released it in the early 80s in the drive-in with a double feature with Blood-Sucking Freaks, which might be the worst movie I've ever seen in a theater environment, but it was 2 horror films. I also remember seeing Lucio Fulci double feature that had House by the Cemetery and The Gates of Hell. This was an interesting double feature. I went on a double date where they showed Private School, which of course like a Porky's type movie, with Amityville 2.
Oh, wow.
But that's kind of cool because you see a kind of a funny one and then you see a scary one, right?
Yeah, no, I love Amityville too.
Going back again to the Sonics, how did you become a Supersonics fan?
Total fluke. I was never a big basketball fan growing up. I think it was 94. What year did they go to the playoffs against the Bulls? Was it 96? 96. 1996, my boss at work, at the time I was working at a mortgage company. I was a processor and he was the loan agent I worked for. He was super into basketball. I think he took me to a game. I forgot. He wanted me to play. Like they had a team at work. I started playing and I really got into it. And by playing, I started watching the games. And as I started watching, somehow I found the Sonics and Peyton and Kemp, and just watching those guys play together, I was like, these are my guys. These guys are awesome. And I just followed them. And I said, I love these guys, these 2 guys. And it just so happens that year they went all the way to the finals. So I was like, man, this is my team for life right here. And of course, they haven't been back since. And then they went away. anyway, I followed them to the finals that year, and I said, yeah, this is my team for life, and I just became obsessed with them. I even went to Seattle and saw some games. I mean, I saw them every time they played at LA. I became obsessed with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp mainly. And then, of course, Kemp left to the Cavs after that lockout year. And he got fat and everything. They just never were the same. Vin Baker couldn't fill those shoes. And Peyton left, and then they got Ray Allen. I was really bummed. I still liked the team, and I stuck with them. I stuck with them all the way to OKC, and I've actually followed OKC, reluctantly. And now this is the first year. I mean, I'm not just saying this. This is the first season that I've kind of fallen off the bandwagon. I am not. I usually watch every game religiously. I haven't really been watching. Maybe once a week I've been watching, and the team is just so.
I really haven't. And what's really strange is I think basketball. I don't know why, but basketball to me, which is my favorite sport to play, it doesn't seem the same as it used to be, even in the years you talk about with Ray Allen and Vin Baker and obviously Kemp and Peyton and Shrimp and all those guys. Basketball seems to me like a bunch of individuals that just want to play street ball. They don't pass anymore. All they want to do is dunk or shoot threes. There's that teamwork that I used to see with Karl Malone and John Stockton, and then obviously Pippen and Jordan. And it seems like the teams now they're kind of isolated out to just individuals. I don't really like that.
I agree, and also all the ticky-tack rules have made the game not as exciting. I mean, when somebody would just muscle their way to the boards, now it's like foul, like immediately foul. And I don't know. And I mean, football's really gotten soft. I mean, it's both sports are I don't know, it's gotten pretty weak.
So since you told me how you got into the Sonics, I thought I grew up in Seattle, obviously. So as a boy, the Sonics I was always cheering them on. And I remember back in the late 70s, they made 2 runs to the finals 2 years in a row. In the 77-78 season, the road that they took to get there, I think they finished 3rd in the Pacific. They opened up against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and the Lakers. It was a 3-game series. They ended up knocking them off 2-1. Then they went to play against Bill Walton and Maurice Lucas on the Portland Trailblazers. And they beat those guys 4-2. It was a 7-game series. The conference finals, they beat David Thompson and Dan Issel in the Western Conference Finals to go to the championship. And they ended up playing the Washington Bullets. They played Wes Unseld. There was a power forward named Elvin Hayes. Karl Malone before Karl Malone came. Big, strong guy, couldn't stop him. And they ended up losing a 7-game series to the Bullets in 77-78. So it was disappointing, but it was a very exciting trip. The next year, they were even better. They won first place in the Pacific. They ended up going into finals. They beat Jabbar again in the first round. Oh, the Phoenix Suns. That was the Western Conference Finals. So it was Paul Westphal, Alvin Adams, and Walter Davis. That was a really good Suns team. And that went 7 games.
Yeah.
And the Sonics won. And then they went to the championship against the Bullets again, 2 years in a row. And that's when they had Gus Williams, Lonnie Shelton, Dennis Johnson, Jack Sikma. They beat them 4-1. They demolished them and won their only championship. 78-79, they were the world champs. Obviously, I went to a bunch of games myself as a kid. So my dad took me to see them against the Atlanta Hawks. It was a 4-overtime victory. And that's when they had Freddie Brown, downtown Freddie Brown. And then the one I could never forget, because he was one of my favorite players outside of the Sonics, I got a chance to see Julius Dr. J. Irving and Moses Malone on the Philadelphia 76ers, and they beat the Sonics that game.
Wow.
And Dr. J was doing those windmill dunks. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Let's talk about John Carpenter's Halloween. What frightened you the most or stayed with you the most after you saw that movie? Because that movie actually changed my life, got my interest first in filmmaking. I would like to hear yours first. I know, just before you say anything, I remember seeing the ad in the Seattle Times newspaper with the pumpkin with the butcher knife, surrounded by black, the night he came home. That poster alone scared me.
Well, I first saw Halloween out of the back window of my parents' car at the drive-in at Highway 39. No sound. I'm just watching it because I'd seen the commercial. I have that commercial burnt in my brain. It was the one where he's coming down the stairs and it freezes, the freeze frames, and it says the night he came home. It just scared the shit out of me. And so I wanted to see that movie, but they wanted to see something else. so I was watching out the back window because you could see there was 4 screens. You looked out, you could see every other screen unless the snack bar was in the way, you know. So I remember I watched it through the window, and without sound, it was even scarier because I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, I don't know. It was just that mask, that emotionless face, scared the crap out of me and stuck with me. And of course, I then sought it out. I saw it. I don't know if I saw it. Excuse me. With sound, I don't know if I saw it first on TV or cable. I don't remember. So I don't know if I saw the edited version I don't remember. I just know I'd seen it. I was obsessed with it. And when Halloween 2 came out, my Aunt Robin took me to see it in the theater. Double feature at a walk-in theater with Funhouse, which was an amazing night.
Oh, that's a great combination. Wow. You know, for me, when I think back to Halloween, when that music first comes on, that kind of simple yet incredibly moody John Carpenter piano and the keyboards, it just really put me in. I thought it was the Midwest. I mean, obviously years later we find out it's shot in Hollywood, but I thought we were in the Midwest. It seemed like it was the fall with the leaves falling in frame, which we know was probably Tommy Lee Wallace dropping them in frame or whoever. Yeah. You know, you could have fooled me because I thought we were in the Midwest watching A Thing in Autumn. So it just the mood immediately took me there. And then that cinematography between Carpenter's vision and Dean Cundy's, you know, shots. I mean, it just really I was hooked. I couldn't get him out. I couldn't get Michael, you know, not just standing behind someone, but down in the clothesline, out at the window at the school. You know, those things like burned in my mind forever. Similar for you? There you go.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you, man, for sure.
The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you see The Shining the first time? Because
Highway 39 drive-in.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I remember going to the drive-in with my mom and dad, seeing that in the drive-in and being terrified. And, you know, and I loved it. I've loved that movie since day one. I know some people saw it and didn't think much of it and then came back to it later, but no, I was obsessed with that movie as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I remember when Stephen King was so negative about it, and I remember thinking, what is King talking about? Thing's a masterpiece. I disagreed with King completely.
Same here.
Yeah, cool.
His version, you know, I mean, it's his book was the source material, but what Kubrick did with it, the changes he made, I thought improved it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend Andrew, like I might have mentioned, had cable, so he had HBO, Showtime, or both. And I remember we used to take the guide that would come out the month before, and we'd go scouring through it, looking for My Bloody Valentine, The Burning, The Prowler, you know, Eyes of a Stranger, all that stuff. And then we would sit down and make sure that night we'd stay up and watch it. I remember when we watched the first Friday the 13th, which came out, I remember HBO Showtime would get like 6 months after it was in the theater. So we watched the first night it was on. And if I remember right, back then they would show them really late. Like they didn't want to make sure kids didn't see these movies.
Yeah.
So when we watched the first Friday 13th, when Jason came out of the lake at the end, both our heads nearly hit the ceiling. We had no idea it was coming. It scared the crap out of us.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember one vivid memory I have was the first time I saw Friday the 13th Part 3 in the walk-in theater. The scene where he squeezes the guy's head and the eye pops out.
Yes.
I jerked back so hard my glasses flew behind me, and I had to get them because I was not ready. I was not ready for that, you know. And the 3D, I don't know if you got to see it in 3D as a kid.
I did.
It was really good in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if it, you know, I've heard mixed opinions from people that saw it and like, you know, and seen like Amityville 3D or Jaws 3D. Like when I saw Jaws 3D, the 3D was terrible. I don't know if it was the theater I saw it at, you know, because I know there was a whole thing with aligning it up and a special screen and all this crap. But the theater I saw Friday Part 3 in, man, it was so good. I came back and saw it again. It was great.
Yeah, I actually saw it myself too, because I went on my first date with a girl from out of town that I somehow saw babysitting across the way. And we went and saw Friday 13th on for August 13th, 82, right? Yeah, so we went and saw it. And what's crazy about the story, because it was Friday 13th, it was opening night. We went to a late show because we went out to dinner first. When we got, I bought tickets ahead of time because I knew it was going to sell out. I mean, I thought it was going to sell out. So when we got there, there was a line all the way around the theater. This was in Everett Mall in Everett, Washington. When we got inside, we had tickets, but the problem was everyone had already filled up in there. So there were no double seats. So I said to this girl on our first date, do you want to go another night? Look, we don't want to sit separate. And she goes, I know how much you love horror films. Let's stay and watch it. I go, you serious? She goes, no, let's watch it. I said, do you want to sit in the back? Do you want to sit in the front? She wanted to sit in the middle, and I sat in the back. So she watched Jason in 3D by herself.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the 3D was excellent because like you said, Maelstrom and Jaws 3D, I thought that the effects in that didn't really work for it. But Steve Miner and the guy who shot that, they really figured out how to maximize that, whether it be the yo-yo going up and down for the guy. I mean, they were doing all kinds of cool stuff.
I think the coolest one was the spear gun. That one, I felt like I could feel it. I was like, ah!
So what pushed you, quote unquote, into the film industry to want to be a part of that? Did it happen by intention or by accident that you got involved?
A little bit of both. I mean, I was always a huge horror fan, but sometime in the 90s, I want to say the late 90s, I started getting the writing bug, and I didn't think I was a good enough writer as far as not so much the ideas, but the actual writing part. I wasn't like a good student of writing, if you will, creative writing. But one of my best friends, a guy named Mike Lester, his whole life was writing, and he wanted to be an author, and he was obsessed with Stephen King, and he wanted to be a novelist and all this stuff. And he was into horror. And we just started talking, bouncing ideas, and let's write a script. So basically he and I would sit down and have sessions where we'd come up with ideas, and then he would go write them, and then I would read them and go, oh, you should change this, blah, blah, blah. It was like 50-50 input, really. And we wrote a few scripts, and we really didn't know what to do with them. But as we started to get friends in the industry, one of our close friends at the time was Reggie Bannister from the Phantasm movies. We'd become friends with him, met him at a convention in 1994, and ended up actually becoming friends with him. And he read one of our scripts and loved it so much, he actually optioned it to have it made. And he tried really hard to get it financed, and it just never happened. But we had some really cool people attached to it. I mean, like he was attached to it. Mark Ralston was attached to it. Vernon Wells. Angus Scrim read it and wrote a really nice letter about how much he liked it, but he felt that he was wrong for the part. Because he said, and I still have the letter, he said that he felt that him making an appearance in it would take away from the movie, and people would go, oh, it's the tall man. Which, I don't know if he was just making an excuse, but either way, he said really nice things about the script in the letter. But it just never happened. And I don't remember, I think from there, another mutual friend started getting into film, wanted to be a film producer, and somebody introduced us, and he said, oh, Sean writes horror scripts. And the guy's like, really? Let me see what you've done. And I showed him, and he was trying to get some stuff financed, and nothing really came of it until one day he asked me if I could read the script. Looked like he had a chance of getting financed, but he wanted my professional opinion. And that script ended up being what became Black Waters of Echoes Pond. I think there's a good idea here, but the script is terrible. It has lots of problems. And he's like, well, what would you do? And I explained to him what I would do. And then he said, would you mind meeting with the writer director and telling him what you told me? And I was immediately like, oh man, I got to go sit down with this guy and tell him his script sucks. This ain't going to go over good. But I did. And I sat down with Gabe Bologna and told him exactly what I thought was wrong with the script, what I liked about it, what I would change. And I just said, that's just my opinion, dude.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he goes, okay, go for it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, rewrite it. And I was like, really? So I went home. I rewrote it. I didn't, at this point, Mike and I weren't really even talking much anymore. He had moved out of state, and we barely talk now, but we stay in touch. But at the time, it was just me. And I felt at that point I was good enough to do it. And I just went for it, and my script got it greenlit. So
Wow.
and that's how that happened.
I never saw that film. How do you feel about it now? How did it turn out compared to your vision of what you saw when you wrote it?
It's not what I envisioned completely. I mean, the guy who directed it, Gabe's a great guy. He was not a horror director. In fact, he wanted me sitting next to him at all times to let him know if I thought something he was doing was not horror enough,
Yeah.
And, and here I'm a guy who's never directed anything, At the time, I didn't really know what really needed to be done to make it work totally. I definitely pushed him in the right direction in a lot of ways. To be fair, neither of us were really qualified to be in that seat. He hadn't done a whole lot up to that point. I don't even know how he got involved. I mean, not knocking the guy at all. He was a great guy and love him to death, but the guy that knows nothing about horror, it definitely, at the time I was pretty proud of it, but I knew it had problems. But I watch it now and I just take it for what it is. It's actually, there's a lot worse, that's for sure. A fun little horror film, I like the fact that it has I think originality. I mean, even though people say it's evil Jumanji, I had never seen Jumanji, so I wasn't thinking Jumanji, but I'm proud of it. I mean, dude, I'd never written anything. I'm making my first movie with Daniel Harris, Robert Patrick, James Duvall. I mean, I was spoiled, really, to be able to have that experience the first time out of the gate. And as a first-time writer, be even allowed on set and have a voice.
Yeah.
Because most writers aren't even allowed on set. To be honest with you, as much as I enjoyed that, it was so much work and so much time out of my life. As much as I'd love to do it again, I'm not trying to. You know what I mean? It was like, as soon as that movie happened, my other business, the convention representation business, exploded. And I got super busy and I just never looked back. It wasn't a fact that there weren't opportunities. It wasn't a fact that I tried to make another one and failed. I moved on to something else. I was moving on to what was paying the bills.
There you go. I totally get it. And look, it's very difficult to make a movie. I know that because I've been doing it for 30 years. And sometimes to me, it's almost a miracle a movie even gets made.
Oh, God.
There's so many ways that it could be canceled, shut down, stopped, unfinished.
Well, like with the thing I was talking about that Reggie optioned, it came this close multiple times. It's like, okay, it's happening. Wait, it's not happening? I mean, I'd had that happen to me so many times up until that point when we did Black Waters, that until I was sitting in the chair and they're like, action, and it was happening in front of me, that was the first time I was like, holy shit, we're making a movie. It's really happening. Yeah. Because I didn't believe it. I kept going, no, okay, yeah, Robert Patrick's going to be in it? Okay, sure, yeah, I'm on, yeah, all right.
There's a lot of people out there that haven't made a movie, that don't know what really goes on. I think a lot of people either want or think they can direct a movie, but the reality that they could actually do it and do it well is very slim. One of the guys got his feelings hurt. He pulled out of the film.
I think I ended up actually editing Black Waters of Echoes Pond with a professional editor, Andrew Cohen. And I was the third guy to give it a shot because nobody seemed to be able to get it right. And my producer who brought me into the project said, why don't we give Sean a shot? I mean, You know, at this point, what do we got to lose? You know, in the editing room, I really learned so much about what you need and what we needed. You know, as you're putting it together, you start to see the pieces and how they fit, and you go, oh, okay, we probably should have got that coverage. We should have done, you know, you start to realize all these things. Has made me a better editor now, doing my own like Horrors Hall Ground stuff. And I know it's no comparison to a film, but in my own personal editing now, I now kind of envision what should be there, you know, to make the transitions and everything.
Even as a boy, when I used to read National Geographic, and there was a magazine called Ranger Rick that showed Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, Zion, wildlife, alligators, etc. So I've always, since I was a boy, fascinated with geographic places. And then after I became interested in filmmaking, that kind of merged together. So I'm one of these guys who very early, before YouTube, before all these DVDs with behind the scenes, going to locations, I've always been interested in that. In fact, I remember on my honeymoon, April of '97, my wife and I flew to California, and we drove from San Francisco all the way down through LA to San Diego over a 2-week period. So during that time, she'd be like, okay, where are we going to go now? Well, Alcatraz, Transamerica Building, all this stuff. So I said, she goes, I want to go to the Charles Schultz Museum up in Santa Rosa. And I'm thinking the year before, Wes Craven made Scream. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to Santa Rosa. So maybe I could see where he shot Scream. And then she goes, I'd like to go to Goat Rock Beach over on the coast. And I'm thinking, oh, Bodega Bay's just short of there. And then Point Reyes is a little bit below that. Okay, let's go to Goat Rock Beach. So on our honeymoon, unbeknownst to her all the time, I was secretly going to these places she wanted to go because I could also go see locations. And, you know, when we got to Point Reyes, it was a Wednesday. So we go all the way out to the point. We get out to the lighthouse, which all of a sudden it said closed on Wednesdays. Like, oh my God. I didn't go all the way here not to see it. So I said to her, I'm going to go see it. I don't care how high the fence is. I'm going over it. So back then it was VHS, you know, recorder. Yeah. So I climbed the fence, had her hand me the VHS tape camera under the thing, and I went all the way down there and recorded it so she could see it. And she said she went in the outhouse there, was outside the gate. She said that almost like felt like she was in Wizard of Oz, because that was a very windy place. Yeah. So anyway, so I went and saw the lighthouse that was all down those steps. Pretty incredible, right?
Oh yeah. No, that was one of the coolest locations I'd been to. When I saw that, I was, you know, I mean, because it looks exactly like it did in the movie.
Absolutely. And then when we got to LA, like, you know, 7 days later, whatever, we go down the Highway 1. We get to LA. Believe it or not, we didn't really have time for me to go look at places because we were going to Disneyland, Universal Studios. Yeah. We had a couple friends in LA we wanted to see while we were there. So one of the first things she wanted to do, I'm telling you this as a purpose to it, she goes, let's go on a Star Tour. And I was like, all right, whatever. I wasn't that excited about it. So we get in this bus, we go down this street. The guy goes, this is one of the most photographed places in all of Hollywood. So I'm thinking, yeah, whatever. And she goes, if you look at this house, this is where Jamie Lee Curtis's friends were staying. And I was like, what? The first location? I grabbed my video camera out, started shooting. I remembered Orange Grove.
That one's Avenue, I think.
Avenue. Orange Grove Avenue. So I went back there at night so I could see what it looked like at night when my wife went to sleep.
I've never been on one of those tours. I mean, I've given tours, you know, but I've never been on one.
So you've given tours specific to a movie or to horror in general?
Well, when we did bus tours for all the Halloween conventions, I organized the tours. 35th and the 40th, I went on the tours. And so I was like a tour guide on one of the buses.
By the way, when we were on that trip in '97, I do this because obviously you've done so much with your show, Horrors Hallowed Grounds. I remember specifically going to some bookstores in LA to find a book on locations, and I couldn't find one because I was always interested in that. Thank God for guys like you that have made it available to us now. And I know there's some other people on YouTube, etc. Before all that, I went and saw Camp Novi Buscu, where they shot Friday 13th, because I'm in New York, I'm on Long Island. It took me 4 months to get approval from the Boy Scouts of America to get that, to go there. Okay, by the way, what do you think this is?
Probably a brick from the the factory from Halloween 3?
Good guess.
Okay. Wait. Okay.
Look at the color. Look at the color.
Okay. Is it a brick from the camp?
Nope. It's a brick
Evil Dead.
from a place that's your favorite location you ever did a
Oh,
show
it's from
on.
Danvers?
This is from Danvers. My wife took it. My wife took it because when we were there, my wife was just walking past. She goes, tell him I stole that from Danvers. And we went there.
You know what I got from Danvers? I got a good stack of canceled checks that I found inside Danvers, like that say like Danvers Insane Asylum on them and stuff. And if you want one, I'll send you one.
Oh, I would love to see that. Do you know what my wife got me? She's going up the stairs. By pointing, she's up there walking. I said, the first time I went there, Sean, we were seeing a Red Sox game because I'm a Red Sox fan for baseball. Mm-hmm. So I said, they shot up, like just up the road, they shot Session 9. Let's go see if we could see the hospital. So we go driving up that road, which I think is also Highway 1, right? So we're driving on that highway. And as we came over those hills,
yeah,
you see all those gray steeples with the reddish brick. I was like, oh my God. It was like breathtaking, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And this is before it ever was touched with the reconstruction. So we drove up through the security gate. We came up through the back. And I don't know about you, but to me, when I first saw that building, it was like an enigma because it actually didn't face the main road. That was the back.
Mm-hmm.
It faced west, right? So we were technically looking at the side or the back of it when you come up that highway. So we go up there, and I remember looking at it, and because it was like this, like the bat wings and everything, you couldn't see the whole thing. I'm like, where the hell's the rest of the building? You see all these things. Wasn't it kind of perplexing?
Yeah, it was so huge too. I mean, it's just such a massive building. And I remember when we first saw it, I'm trying to remember if we drove up there first or but I remember we got up on a roof of a nearby hotel and you could see the whole thing. And it was, and I did shoot some footage up on that rooftop. I was actually thinking of digging out all the footage I shot from there, because I just cut in bits in the episode.
Yeah.
But I may just put it all online for people if people are really want to see it all.
When you got in there, what was the weather like? Because what happened was when we went to the first time with our friend Martha and my wife, because we went to see a Red Sox game, the security would not let us in.
Yeah.
Not even on the outside.
I know. Yeah.
So
they were hardcore.
Yeah, they turned us away. And what happened was I started trying to find out about the place because it has a way of kind of haunting you. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It stays with you. And I remember saying when we were at the back there where the gym used to be, I remember saying to our friend, wonder if they have a postcard of this place? And she laughed. And she's like, why would you have a postcard of Insane Asylum? Well, my wife ended up going on eBay and she found one from 1937 and she bought it. I actually have it downstairs somewhere. Black and white. You can see the Kirkbride building. It looked amazing. So I actually ended up getting a postcard of Danvers. But what happened was I became friends with a couple guys who were experts of that online. One was Mike Ramsar. And Mike sent me a book or two where he did paintings of it, beautiful abstract paintings. And he ended up contacting me probably 0203. And he said, Terry, they're giving tours every Wednesday or Tuesday, something like that. You have to register. You have to sign a waiver for like asbestos and lead paint. They won't let you in it, but you can walk around it for like 2 hours. So we made a trip from Long Island up to Danvers, and we caught a Red Sox game while we did it because love the Red Sox. And we toured Danvers, but it was a murky kind of overcast day. And I kid you not, my video camera, the VHS video camera, it literally the battery went dead after 15 minutes. And I'm not an overly, believe in ghosts and all that stuff, but the camera didn't work that long. Is that crazy?
Wow. Yeah, when I went there, I remember when they were doing those tours because the guy who got me in, his name was John Gray. I don't know if you heard of him.
I wasn't familiar with him.
He ran a Danvers, like urban exploration website, and I contacted him through, because I knew there's no way I'm flying all the way to Massachusetts to not get in this place.
Right.
I need some help. And I'd been reading online how hardcore security was and all this stuff, you know, the message boards back in the message boards days. And so I contacted this guy, and, you know, apparently I'm not the only dude that contacted him. Lots of people were, you know, and he was like, dude, he goes, I blow off all these people, but I was able to talk him into it. And we became friends. And he took me and my friend, Tim Mankowski. He took us there. And I remember, I'll never forget, we went, let's see, it was late at night. We're cutting through the woods, and, you know, and it was like we had to wait for security to pass. Like they would drive around. And when they passed them, we made a beeline for this one area. We like scaled this friggin' wall up to on top of the gym, I think. And there was an open door up there. I mean, it was so dangerous. And there was another time we came back. It was like, oh, you know, they closed that opening, you know. There was some other way he thought of getting in. And because we came back, like, maybe because we wanted to see more, because you know, that place was so massive, you couldn't see it. You couldn't see it. And there was subtunnels, you know, there was 2 subtunnels underground. Like, I mean, it got gnarly down there. I remember the next time we came back, the way he had to get in was sealed up, and he's like, well, we're screwed, we're not getting in. And I'm just like, have you ever even tried to like pry open, you know, one of the doors, you know, with the, what the hell?
Crowbar.
And he's like, no, I haven't. So we went and got one. Dude, popped open so easy, because they were so old, it popped right open, walked right in.
What door did you go in that time?
That time it was a ground level door. So on one of the sides, I remember it was on the side, like one of the ends of the back wing, if you will. It's such a bummer that it's gone. I mean, I understand. What a place to explore. I mean, it was, to this day, hands down, the most thrilling thing I've ever done. Like, that was just so, and plus the fact that when you were in there with all the windows boarded up, it was pitch black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face if you turned your light off. So if you were walking in there and your flashlight went dead, you're fucked.
I totally get it now. So here's the question I have to ask you. When I made the movie Abandoned, but when I was inside there, and the reason I ask you is because when you were inside Danvers, a lot of people would ask me, were you afraid? Were you scared? And being completely truthful, honest, I said, no, I was never afraid of ghosts or monsters, because they don't exist in my mind, even being a horror film freak. But I said, I was more afraid of breathing what's in that building, whether it be asbestos, lead paint, you know, toxic dust, you know, that was, and I had a crew, you know, with actors, and we shot on one of the hottest days of all, actually the hottest day. One of our days was July 23rd, 2016. It was 97 degrees that day. And as you know, Abandoned Place has no AC, no fans, no electricity. Yeah. So we were sweating it out, and I offered everyone masks, but I said, if you don't want to wear them, that's up to you. I remember at one point with me, the sweat was just pouring off my face. I was like, screw the mask. I took it off for maybe like 3 hours. So I went to a doctor after that and said, do I have anything to worry about? He goes, well, no, in about 20 years.
Then I should know in about 2 or 3 years, because that's when I was there.
So did you have any of that in your mind?
I thought about it, because the only thing I thought about was that little bit in the movie when Josh Lucas talks about, you know, the little piece that can be incubating inside you. What really worried me is I'm in there, and that guy, Mikey, whatever his name was, I don't know if it's the same guy you're talking about, but he had a full-on respirator thing. And I'm like looking at this guy going, shit, you know, maybe I should be wearing one too, you know?
So, you know, talking about all the places you've been, the horror film sites, I loved that you went to the Twilight Zone crash. That was something very interesting to me, even before you did it, as you might guess, because I've been a lifelong horror guy. Mm-hmm. Were there ever a time that you went to a place and there was any kind of thing dangerous, whether it be an animal, a snake, a tarantula, a scorpion, a floor that could cave in, a wall that falls down? Anything ever dangerous happened in one of your searches?
Danvers, for one. I mean, I remember we were on like, I don't know, the 5th floor or whatever it was. And I looked into a patient room and it was caved in all the way to the subtunnel. Realized, oh shit, this is a dangerous place, and there was a spot where I fell through the floor up to my thigh. I mean, I didn't go through obviously, but I stepped on a spot that my leg went through. That scared the shit out of me, obviously. And then there was lots of bats in there. Those always freak you out when they're just flying by your head, But one of the scariest things that happened, believe it or not, there was two. One was Texas Chainsaw. It's in the episode where we were walking around and we were seeing these giant, they almost looked like records. I mean, they were obviously shit, but they were really flat, but they were round like this. And we saw them all over, and this is where the Sawyer house used to be, and it's now a vacant area, or I don't know what it is right now, but at the time, we're going through these bushes, and we come around a corner, and I see pop up from behind this bush, these horns, and it's a bull looking at me, and then another one next to it pops its head up, and I'm like, and it's on camera. If you watch the episode, you hear me go, "That's a fucking bull," and that's another one. We're getting the fuck out of here. Because these were full-on giant bulls. If they had charged us, we had nowhere to go. We were in the middle of, there was some trees and bushes, but we were nowhere near getting away from them. But fortunately, we just backed away. They didn't do anything. We bailed. And then the next time, the next one that freaked me out was my ex-wife and I were going up to where they shot Lost Boys and where the house is, and it's in like a national park. So you have to kind of hike to it, and we're going up like this dirt road, and all of a sudden we got surrounded by a pack of, they were obviously stray dogs, like a pack of them.
Wow.
And they were growling at us, and I legit thought they were gonna attack us. There was about 5 of them, and I was like, holy shit, this is how I'm gonna go out. Some stray dogs, but fortunately I kind of, I was like, and they kept growling, but they bailed. And I was like, freaked the shit out of me though. It definitely made me think now, like I did a little hike recently by myself to a movie location, and it was through a national park kind of thing. And I was by myself, and I was realizing I was nowhere near anything, and what if there was a bobcat out here or something. So I purposely picked up a giant like piece of wood and was carrying it with me just in case, so I had something. Be safe than sorry. But so I think those are probably the 2 scariest moments.
That's very cool to hear those stories, because I could picture that if you're traipsing around in these different places, which could have wildlife, could have dangerous conditions like Danvers, you're probably going to run into something at some point, just the law of averages. Have you ever had a location for a movie that you just could not get in or get to because either security or, there was just no way you could do it? Like you tried to go, but you got stopped.
Well, one that was really frustrating was the Father's Day house from Creepshow. We knew it was private property, and we knew that we had asked for permission and they said no. And honestly, my motto, if you will, on all this stuff is don't ask permission. Just do it. And if they say you can't, then you stop. Because if you give them the chance to think about it, 90% of the time they're going to say no.
Yeah.
But if you put them on the spot, like a lot of the times I've shown up at places and, I had incredible luck on Halloween 4, 5, and 6 when I went to Salt Lake City, Utah. I shot all 3 episodes within a week. We just stayed in Utah. And I just went house to house knocking on the door going, hey, hi, my name, blah, blah, blah. I'm working on the new Blu-ray. I just talked a good game. And they're like, oh, come on in. I mean, I couldn't believe total strangers are inviting me in their house to film.
Wow.
Only one house said no, and it was the Myers house from Part 5.
Okay.
But but you can shoot from outside legally. They can't stop you. You can film from the sidewalk. But for the Father's Day one, we were really running on a tight schedule. We had been filming. We had a super tight schedule, and I forgot where we were flying. My camera guy and I were flying somewhere, I think to a convention or something. I think I had worked it into a convention schedule. We were going to a convention, and we had plane ticket ready to go. We had mapped out just enough time to do everything, including Father's Day house. On the way, I said, oh shit, isn't the Silence of the Lambs Buffalo Bill house somewhere around here too?
Yep.
And we looked it up, and it's like, oh man, it's a little out of the way, but it'd be cool to see it. So we went, and because we had like maybe, I don't know, 3 hours tops before we had to get to the airport. And we went out of our way, which probably took at least an hour out of our time. But we're like, we'll still have time to swing by, and we're not going to probably be able to film it. So we're going to have to like bonsai it anyway, just to get the shot. Well, we get to the Silence of the Lambs house, and the woman in the house sees us outside taking pictures and stuff. And she comes out, can I help you? And I said, oh, hi, just a real big fan of the movie. Is it okay if we take some pictures? We'll stay out here. And she's like, no, come on in. Whoa. They let us come in. They let us go down the basement. Next thing I know, we've been there an hour and a half. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, guys, we gotta go. So we're trying to make it to the Father's Day house, and we realize there's no way we're gonna make our flight if we do that. So we had to back out of it. And my buddy if you watch the episode, there's a little quick drive-by that my friend that lives there did, but we never really got in. So that's one that bothered me. One that I was just totally denied. I did get in, but I was really putting up a fight. I'm a huge fan of the movie My Bodyguard, Chris Makepeace. So when I was in Chicago, I was going to all the filming locations. I wanted to see the high school. And it's just so hard to get in schools nowadays, especially when you're a 50-year-old man,
Yeah.
It's not fair. So I was there, and they had like an entrance, and they had a security guard. And I was explaining to him, I said, hey man, I'm just a real big fan of the movies. Is there any way I could just take a quick look, take a couple pictures? And he's like, nope. As I'm standing there talking to him, people are coming in for this volleyball game that's happening. And I'm just like, man, you're letting all these people in, you want to just let me. And he's like, nope. And like some of the students, there was a couple young black girls that were listening to the conversation, and they were giving the security guard shit. They're like, come on, man, just let him check out the school, And he's like, not. I go, okay. I go, well, let me ask you this. I go, what if I was here to see the volleyball game? Can I at least go in there? And he goes, you can go into the gym where everybody else is, but that's all you can do. All right. So I went in, and it just happened to be the very gym that they played the basketball game in when Matt Dillon elbowed him and everything.
Yeah.
So I at least got to see that. And then I snuck down in, because it's a really weird school. They have these stairs that go under the gym, and the locker room is under the gym. And I snuck down there, and I took pictures of the locker room. So then I came out, and the guy just wouldn't let me see anything else. And I said, okay, I tried. And I was walking away defeated, and I'm walking, and all of a sudden a side door pops open, and one of those girls pops her head out and said, like this. And and she goes, you want to see the school, right? And I'm like, yeah. She let me in a side door. And I asked her, I said, do you know where the auditorium is? There was that scene where they're chasing them through it looks like a theater where somebody's on stage rehearsing a play or something.
Yeah. And
she told me where that was, and I went and saw that. And then I'm walking down the hallways. And one thing I remembered is when I was sitting there talking to that security guard, he had monitors. Yeah, so I'm walking around trying to find like the classroom and stuff, and I see him come around a corner, and he's all, "Hey!" I took off running, man. I just got the hell out of there, ran out a side door, and so I got to see a little bit of it. That was a little bit of a fail.
So what are some movies that you haven't yet done that you would really love to do locations?
I don't know. I mean, there's lots of episodes I haven't done that I've been to places before, and I want to go back and do episodes. Like I'm going to do a Lost Boys episode soon. I'm working on it right now. That was actually supposed to happen back when Corey Haim was still alive. He was actually going to go with me to all the locations.
Man.
Yeah, because he was a friend. I mean, he's actually been in this house. I mean, he was a good friend, and I worked with him. And he had agreed to do it, and he passed away, completely, suddenly, and so I kind of lost my motivation. Oh, okay, one of my white whales I want, and it's just a matter of doing it. Well, there's two, and I almost did one of them for the last Blu-ray release, but I ran out of time. Was My Bloody Valentine.
Oh yes, I love that movie.
And it's not easy to get to. It's in
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, Nova Scotia, but it's like you have to take like a flight in and then a puddle jumper, and it's not easy to get to. And I was going to do it when I worked on the last Scream Factory Blu-ray for that. I did all the bonus features for it, and it was in the works, but I don't want to throw the blame on other people, but my camera guy got busy on a project, couldn't get away. Little time passed, weather changed, started to get into winter, and it was just like, I'm not going to go there traipsing through the snow, so we passed on that one. The other one, oddly enough, also Canada, Meatballs. I want to go to that.
Yeah.
There's a fan that I talked to on Facebook who has been and sent me pictures and stuff, and a lot of it looks exactly the same.
Really?
So, yeah, I'm dying to see that place.
Have you been up to where the Bob Clark shot, the late Bob Clark shot Black Christmas?
Yes, I did all the Black Christmas locations, like, God, back in 2006, I think.
I love that movie. That was such a great movie.
Yeah. I did all those. There was a guy, I can't remember his name, like pisses me off. There was a guy who used to run a website, a Black Christmas website. It was called like itsmebilly.com.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
That guy personally took me to all the spots, because at the time, nobody knew where they were, and he was very secretive about them. Now, you can't keep that secret very long, but at the time, I had to rely on him to take me.
What about, do you think anyone knows where locations where Clark shot When Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things down in Miami?
That I don't know. I did some research on Porky's also, because I'm a big Porky's fan.
Oh, I love Porky's.
It seems like almost everything's gone. Like the school was torn down, like the little diner place where they did the Mike Hunt phone call, that's gone. It just seemed like there isn't really anything to see anymore. So
you know what's amazing about Porky's is that I love that movie too, and I grew up during that time when it came out. Of course, what's crazy is maybe about 2 months ago I rewatched Porky's, and then I went to the second one, and I couldn't believe how much of a difference between the first film and the second film. They really they castrated all the humor, even though the same cast was there, maybe because at that point they were successful and they had made it, quote unquote. Bob Clark didn't have that same risky dialogue, character choices. Unfortunately, the second one just did not work.
Well, the third one's even worse.
Yeah, exactly. What I find interesting that you were saying about your quote unquote job versus say your YouTube stuff is one of my best filmmaking friends is Chris Garantano, directed Montauk Chronicles, Dark Files, etc. And he was telling me that when he did a show for Travel Channel, Strange World, that when he's done this stuff on his own, he appreciates what he did with them, and I'm sure gets paid very good money.
Mm.
But he's having so much more fun with the stuff that he controls himself and can do what he wants at his own leisure. And he's a driven guy, but he has a podcast show. So he's been putting out once a month. And he said he's having so much fun. He chooses the people, what they talk about, and doesn't have to take these corporate notes and make these changes like he does on the big shows. You know what I mean?
Well, I had the same thing when I first gave my first couple episodes of Horrors Hallowed Grounds to Scream Factory. I was recommended to them by Michael Felsher, and he kind of told them what the show was, and they're like, "That sounds great, yeah, do it." And I turned them in, and they watched them, and they were, "What? What is this? Wait a second." You know, they were freaked out by some of the shit I was doing, like spoofing scenes and recreating. You know, I was
Which
doing
is
all
fun.
these things.
That's fun.
Yeah, but they started getting all freaked out, like, "Oh, you can't do that legally. You know, you have to take that out. You can't say this. You know, that's a little too racy. You know, that might be taken the wrong way." And I started I was like, man, I pretty much told, it got to a point where we were fighting so much on those first two episodes that I was just like, fuck it, don't use it then.
Yeah.
And eventually they just said, okay, let's just roll the dice and put it. And they were of the attitude, we're just going to put him on there and we're never going to use this guy again. You know, let's be done with it. Yeah. And then a crazy thing happened. People started saying how great those episodes were, and they were getting all this positive feedback, and they were like, "Oh, maybe we should have him do more of those." And you know, and then that's what happened.
You know what that goes to show, Sean, is I really think that Hollywood, quote unquote Hollywood, as a whole, they operate on fear.
Yeah,
they're not courageous enough to make new stories, new movies with new ideas. They want, oh, let's make this sequel, let's make that remake. They got no guts. And that just reaffirms from what you're saying. They have no.
Yeah. Well,
honestly,
I will say this, to their credit, they didn't really get in my way hardly at all. I mean, they pretty much let me do my thing. And every once in a while, like, you know, but there were a few meetings I had with companies that wanted to turn Horrors Hallowed Grounds into a series. And it was always, okay, well, this is what we should change. And I'm like, no, this is the show. You know, if you don't get this, then, you know, I'm not going to do a watered down version of this, you know? I mean, because, I mean, what people that watch my shit seem to appreciate is that they relate to me and they feel like they're tagging along with me. They feel like they're a buddy who's hanging out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've watched some of these location things that, you know, that were on Travel Channel and stuff, and they're just so just paint by numbers, just, you know,
flat.
no
flat.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that the host was hired. He doesn't care about where he's at. Yeah. He has no connection to these places. No. And I remember, you know, I remember one of the first ones I saw, and I may be wrong, but I think it was Christopher Knight, Peter Brady from Brady Bunch hosted some movie location thing. And I remember watching it going, I love Christopher Knight. I love the Brady Bunch, but what the fuck is he doing in front of the Exorcist house or what? You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't ring true, right?
No, and that's, you know, and I watch, there's so many people on YouTube doing it now. And that was my biggest mistake. I should have I mean, if I had put my stuff on YouTube back when it, you know, it started, I'd be killing it. I'd be doing it as a profession.
Yeah.
But I held back because I kept thinking, well, I'm going to get a TV series. So I don't want to put it on YouTube for free because somebody's going to pay me to do this.
Yeah.
And now, you know, I see these guys, you know, like one of my good friends, Adam the Woo, you know, he's killing it doing these vlogs every day. And, you know, and I've actually had people say that I'm a knockoff of him. That's like, dude, I've been doing it I've been doing it 15 years longer than him. You know, I mean, no offense. I mean, I started back in like 94.
Yeah.
But you know, he was smart enough to put it on YouTube first. I mean, he
Yeah.
was. And I love the guy and I love his stuff. I mean, there's some YouTubers that do it that are clearly just doing it for the clicks, doing
Yeah.
it for the view, and they don't have their heart in it, and they annoy me.
You know which ones I can't stand is when you watch one and they'll be at a location, but they don't show you any kind of reference. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that? What the hell am I? And I can only watch that for a few seconds and then click, I'm shutting it off.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you need to be able to see the before and after. I mean, no matter how well you know the movie, it helps to be able to see it. Oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, that's tricky, you know, because you can get copyright flagged. You know, these people are trying to monetize it, and believe me, I've been dealing with that. But you know, I don't feel like the content holds up if you don't have it.
Right.
So
I agree.
So I take the time and I put it in, you know.
Good for you. Good for you.
So.
Well, I know we've been on a long time here. I really appreciate it. Have you had fun?
Yeah.
Not the
I'm
simplest.
getting hungry, but I'm
Okay. Well, it's great talking to you, Supersonics, right? They got to come back. They got to come back.
I hope so. I mean, it would be really cool. It would be really cool to see. I mean, it's crazy to think that there's only a couple of guys left in the league that were Sonics.
I know.
I mean, isn't it basically just Durant and I guess Westbrook never played on the Sonics, but he was drafted. But I think the only other one is Green.
Yes.
Jeff Green.
Jeff Green. That's it.
I don't think there's anybody else left.
Nope.
That's crazy to think, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to get Sonics for my show.
Yeah, see, I would love to have a former Sonic on if they were a big horror fan and like they wanted to talk horror movies, you know?
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I get Peyton or Kemp or Shrimp.
Oh.
If I get them, you'll probably watch the show, right?
Fuck yeah, I would.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean. And
all right, man. Take care.
Thanks for coming into the depths.
All right. Take care, man. Bye.
Bye.